Hi, and welcome to episode 33 of the Muscle News and Merlin Bodybuilding podcast with my partner Eric Broser and our special guests, Jack London and Ed Connors. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Yeah.
Ed, it's great to see you again after all
Like,
these years.
so, um, uh, obviously, Ed has a huge background in the sport of bodybuilding, amongst other things, and Gold's Gym and helping athletes, achieve their dreams. And Jack was in the middle of it in the beginning years with, from what I mean, we'll find out more about it. Living with Lee Priest, Jay Cutler, and that gang of legends as well, and hopefully we'll find out some juicy stories today and learn more about Ed's work and what Jack is doing and just having some fun talking about the sport of bodybuilding and how people came along over the years. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, and I'd also like to get some talk about their thoughts on modern bodybuilding versus
Yeah,
bodybuilding back in the
obviously,
day.
yeah. So I guess let's start off. Ed, obviously, many people know your story. You're you went to Vietnam. You were an accomplished architect. I saw some stuff that you did some fantastic work. One of the previous owners of Gold's Gym. You turned it into an empire, if I'm not mistaken. And then you moved, and in that time, I don't know the time slot. Obviously you invited young bodybuilders to that you took care of them and you helped them achieve greatness and they still look up to you today like one of yeah, and I basically see you in the same slot as Joe and Ben Weider, giving these guys a chance and even maybe even further you took care of them on the way up and they all respect you today. I've never heard anybody say anything other than good things about you. I mean that what being an accomplished architect and things like that. What bodybuilding? How did that cross your paths in your life? I mean,
Well, I think I had an eye for beauty. Uh, I'm now actually in Europe, and I've been traveling for 2 months, and the symmetry, the
exactly.
architecture.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just there's so much ugliness in America, but I mean it also comes to physiques. I could somehow see but in people potential to reach to do something in the fitness industry.
So,
So it wasn't everybody, but certainly I had an eye for picking talent, and I think part of that's my architectural background.
well, and while you were doing, I mean, well, obviously, while you were doing that, you were busy trying to open roads for these young athletes. Like, I mean, to name a few: Jay Cutler, Lee Priest, Jack, and many Paul Dillett, if I'm not mistaken, right? Many other athletes.
I would see the talent that would come into the Mecca, and Paul Dillett was one of them, and I took him to uh, see Joe Weider in hopes of getting him a contract, and unfortunately, Joe thought he was already a pro and gave him a contract. So it was one of those happy accidents. But
Wow.
same way with Lee Priest or Jay Cutler or so many of the guys. Joe Weider would rarely come down to Gold's Gym Venice. And so he kind of trusted me to find the new talent and send it his way. Venice, California is kind of an acquired taste.
Yeah.
And Joe's offices were in the Valley. He lived in Hancock Park, which is in central LA. So I enjoyed introducing him to new talent and trying to help them out.
Wow. Wow. And obviously, Jack, you were in the thick of it when you were young.
I was. I met Ed. Really, we met by accident, and that's really the story I told when he came out to visit for my announcement when I ran for Senate. I went to California. I had won the World Police and Fire Games, which was a bodybuilding show I was a cop at the time, for all the police and firemen in the world. And I saw Gary Udit there, and Gary said, "Oh, you got to go to Venice Beach." And I went out to Venice Beach, and the first day I was there, I was in Gold's Gym. And if you remember Gold's Gym, it was huge. I mean, two people could train there for 2 years and never see each other. It was so big. And I was there for an hour. The first 10 minutes I was doing back with Samir Banu, who was my idol. And there was all this commotion, and there was people with street clothes walking back and forth. And there was a salt and pepper haired fella kept walking past me. And he came up to me and he said, "Where are you from? What's your name and who you're from?" And I said, "Well, my name's Jack London, but how do you know I'm not from here?" And he said, "Oh, everybody kind of knows each other around here." And I said, "Okay, you got me. My name's Jack London. I'm a cop from Philly, and I want to be Mr. America." And I'm like, this person was being very, very like elusive, as Ed is, and very low key. And he wouldn't tell me who he was. And then he said, "Well, I'm a bodybuilding kind of a talent scout. I might be able to help you if you want to talk afterwards." So, "Okay, well, where can we talk?" And he says, "Well, come to my office." And I said, "Well, where's your office?" I'm trying to figure out who this guy is. If he's like legit, I don't know who he is.
Right. It sounds kind of strange in the beginning, right?
It was really strange, the whole thing. And so he says, "Well, if you go up the steps on the second floor on my office," I said, "Oh, you're affiliated with this gym?" And he kind of looks around. He goes, "Well, I own the gym." I said, "You own this gym?" He says, No, I own Old Gold's Gym Enterprises." And I dropped the weight. Let's go. So me and my friend, him, and Ed, and my friend Joe followed Ed up the steps, and we go in his office, and he's very conservative, as Ed is, like I have now, very, the credenza behind. And he said, "Okay, take off all your clothes." And I was like, "Okay." Well, I'm from Philly. I'm from the East Coast. We do things a little differently around here. We're a little gruff.
Yeah, I'm from New York. I probably would have thought that was a little weird too.
It was weird. So I figured, well, what the heck? Let's do it, right? And so I take my clothes off, and he starts putting me through the mandatories, and he's taking very copious notes. He says, "Okay, put your clothes back on." And then he stops, and he says, "How tall are you?" I said, "Oh, about 5'9". He says, "What's your shoe size?" I said, "I'm a 12". And he goes, "Oh, you're a 12. Okay." And he's writing the copious notes. And Ed, do you remember any of this?
Well, I always ask people about their shoe size because it's so interesting.
Right.
People don't realize that actually their growth was stunted, probably having to make weight for wrestling in America.
Well, you had told me that my recollection was you had told me that showed that I have a large bone structure and that I was able to hold more muscle.
That's what I was thinking.
Well, not only that, but basically it creates a longer torso and shorter, thicker legs. So
that's exactly right. That's exactly what I had. And so he says, "Okay, well, here's what I can do for you, and I can help you." And he kind of shows me what he could do, and I was like, "Okay, great. I'm ready." It seemed like a dream come true to me. He says, No, you need to go back. We're staying at the Marina. There was a hotel called the Marina Pacific. It was where all the bodybuilders stayed.
Oh my God. I used to live in Marina Del Rey. I know the whole place.
So he says, "You go back to your room, and I'll pick you up tomorrow. And if you still feel that way." And if Ed, I'm sure Ed doesn't remember all this detail because he's at 500 people, but obviously I remember because it was life-changing for me. And he picked us up. He had a Jaguar. He drove a 4-door Jaguar, and he took me and Joe to Benihana. It was the first time I didn't know how to use chopsticks, and Ed taught me how to use chopsticks. And I said, "I want to stay." And then he said, "Okay, well, you can stay in my house on Wavecrest Avenue." And I moved in there. There was another person living there at the time named Louis, and Louis Colomb and I. And then about a week later, Ed came. I was known, I don't know, Ed, if you remember this, but I was known for I trained really hard. I was a former powerlifter. I squatted over 1,000 pounds and bench press.
Yeah, I saw you were a football player and then a powerlifter, right?
Yeah, I was a world champion powerlifter first.
That's a big difference between today's bodybuilders and the ones in the 80s and 90s. The ones back then typically came from a powerlifting background, they had some serious muscle. It was,
I think
so Ed comes to me and says, "Listen, you train hard, okay? We're going to find out." He says, I'm bringing Akim Albrecht down from Northern California to get ready for the Arnold, and he's going to train with you. He's going to live here and train with you. We'll see if you can keep up." And Akim and I became very close friends after that. And then shortly after that, Jay Cutler showed up, and Ed, I don't know if you remember, but it was me who you sent me and Louis sent to go pick up Lee at the airport when you flew him here from Australia. Do you remember that?
I didn't fly Lee from Australia. I'm not sure of the timing there, but
Oh, that's what I remember, that we were the
yeah.
first ones to
You
hang out.
were staying in my overflow house
Right,
on
right,
Wavecrest. I was living on the beach,
right,
and
right.
I co-owned that house with Flex Wheeler. But at some point, he sold it back. He sold it back to me, a duplex.
I
So
lived in there before you sold it to Flex, and then when he
mhm.
bought it, I moved down into the
Okay,
apartment that Darren had lived in.
all right,
So it all, like I said, it's all
yeah,
crossover, I'm sure, for you. But anyway, I think the important thing to know is that, Ed changed my life, not just because of bodybuilding, but he gave me made me believe in myself. And I was like, wow, I must have something here. And I ended up going on to do other things, but it was basically a platform from what Ed had helped me, you know, achieve things that I probably would not have achieved.
I think that's something. I mean, like today I was hearing Chris Aceto talk on Dave's show about, he was telling the stories when he used to work at Gold's, giving diets all day. And, when Ed used to send him abroad sometimes and his funny stories and things. Like, obviously, he loves Ed. So much respect for him. I mean, Chris Aceto, he's one of the guys that started there as well, at the, you know, and that's something I see missing today in lots of young athletes. There's no. Some of them have, obviously they want to win the Olympia or whatever main contest they want to win, but there is the presidents of federations and things, but there's nobody to keep them together and guide them other than a coach. But coaches come and go. And like I'm saying, a guy like Ed, I think he was the last of the the first and the last of guys that nurtured these young body and taught them things like how to be successful not only in bodybuilding but in anything else they do. Because if you see the majority of guys that went through Ed's, life, they all became successful in one way or another. If it was not bodybuilding, they moved on to be successful guys afterwards. You know what I mean? So it's like Ed, he just, injected like something into them, like saying, "Listen, you're better than you are, and keep on going," and things like that. I mean,
Yeah, I when Jay and Lee showed up, I kind of realized that would never have the genetics to compete with them, and I ended up going back to school. And as Ed knows, I went on to be successful in politics, and I'm the CEO of a financial firm now. And
wow,
I've had a great life, and I will always be grateful to Ed. I invited him to come out for my announcement when I ran for Senate, and because it was important, because those were turning points in my meeting. Ed was a
wow,
turning point in my life. It was something that, it was a big it was a life-changing event. And
yeah,
for that, I'll always be grateful. And he did look out for me, and he did help me, and he did, financially and otherwise. So, and no, people don't do that anymore. And there isn't that brotherhood anymore. And there's no mentors. I try to mentor people. I try to pay it forward as Ed did. Sometimes I'll help people if I know somebody in the gym who's doing a show or competing, doesn't have the money for a plane ticket. Ed, you'll be proud of me to know that I've paid for plane tickets. I've helped people
wow,
with things like that. I know someone who's doing a strongman event and didn't have enough money at the Arnold, so I paid for his hotel room. Nothing to the level that Ed had done, but just enough that I feel like, okay, I'm at least giving back a little bit.
yeah,
that's a point I make in my book, Kevin, is that people would say, Ed, why do you do what you do? In terms of helping people financially. But in my book, I write that the average American with a dog spends $16,000 on a pet during its lifetime. For a few $1,000s, I bet my entire investment in John Cena is under 5 grand.
wow,
And
wow,
look what happened. So yeah,
yeah,
I just and most of these house guests that I had, they grew up in horrible circumstances. I'm actually working on a screenplay, based on the stories in my book. But J.D. Vance, our current vice president, wrote a book called Hellbelly Elegy, which became a very good movie. And his story, was attracted a lot of attention. But any one of my house guests, like the Ultimate Warrior, his story would make J.D. Vance's story looked like kind of a happy one. I would say the majority of my house guests were raised by grandparents, grandmothers. They grew up in, really horrible circumstances. And, my giving them a plane ticket or encouraging them to come west was their way
Yeah.
basically escaping incredible poverty. And that really beats people down. I think
Yeah.
people don't realize what growing up poor
Yeah.
does to somebody's self-esteem.
Yeah.
And back then, only 10% of America had ever been on a plane. I did some research for my book, and
Wow.
so getting on a plane, leaving a small town in America, like you, Kevin, leaving Canada and going to some new place,
Yeah.
that's a major adventure.
It
But it
it
could be life
Yeah,
changing.
it is. It is. But for me, it's a bit easier because, like, when I was living in Canada, there was like a tight Maltese community, of the immigrants that went there, and they started establishing themselves, and like now today they're well off and stuff. And coming to Malta, I found the support because I had my family. But like what you're saying, just packing up your things and going to California without having maybe $100 in your pocket, that for me that would be horrifying. I mean, look at the trust that they had in
I
you.
flew there on a 2 week vacation for a 1 week vacation and never came home.
Wow.
My
I mean, that
parents
for me,
my parents UPS me my clothes afterwards.
I mean, for me to do I'm talking about myself to do something. I mean, I've been offered to go to many places related to bodybuilding, even to take photos at a show in different parts of Europe. And I would try to find anything negative to not go. That's one of my the bad things about me. I overthink. You know what I mean? I just don't do it. So like, I mean, like this podcast, Eric's been running after me for about 10 years to do it, and finally I gave in.
Gotcha.
So I don't know, Eric. Do you want to? I
Yeah,
guess
well,
you've been dying
actually,
to ask.
something popped into my head when Ed was talking about it and saying how a lot of these guys came to you and they came from very poor backgrounds, maybe very rough backgrounds. I was going to say, Ed, do you think that, because obviously you had so many of these guys and you got to know them, do you think that the sort of the not that maybe everybody, but all these guys, the commonality of coming from a rough background or a tough background, do you think that that translated to making them harder workers and appreciating things more so that those types of guys became very successful because they came from such a rough background?
Actually, I don't. I mean, there's that old saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But studies have shown that being around successful people or a richer environment can be life changing. So I think it was the key here. It wasn't the fact that they came from a horrible situation, but that they went into a new situation. And keep in mind, LA was a very positive place at that time where, I mean, a lot of people, in small town America, if you leave, your nosebleed Iowa and go to California and make it, people are going to gossip about you, talk bad. But in LA, and it goes to Venice, you would see actors, other people with dreams, and you would think, well, God, if they make it, maybe I will too. So it was an incredibly positive environment. Jack, maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. That's exactly how I felt. I particularly did not come from a poor background. I came from what I would call middle class, but growing up in Philly, in my family, bodybuilding was not something that you were going to pursue. You would go to school, and so my family was completely against everything I did. And so going out to California and meeting Ed and seeing these other people, you realize, oh, I can do this. I can to some level. And Ed will tell you, there's a lot of people who go out there to become bodybuilders who told them, don't be bodybuilders, be wrestlers, whether it be Cena or remember Andrew Bernarski or folks like that who, originally, but there's a lot of opportunity there. Back then, Venice Beach was bustling. It was vibrant. It was eclectic. And there was a lot of opportunity for a lot of different types of people. And yeah, there were actors. I mean, I became friends with Keanu Reeves and Wesley Snipes because they would all train at the gym and they loved the bodybuilders and the bodybuilders loved them. And we all kind of would hang out and train together and see each other out at Jerry's Deli or what have you. And yeah, there's you start thinking, well, these are just normal people. I can do
Yeah.
this. I started going on movies, go sees for movies and all kinds of fun stuff. And
Well,
it's
Jack, and that same thought occurred when I got laid off work as an architect in New York and came to California to get a job working on the Neiman Marcus store in Beverly Hills, and I had a studio apartment initially in Beverly Hills, and it was La La Land, and I
right.
going to the office every day and having lunch and walking around Beverly. I said, these people aren't really any different than me.
Nope.
And a lot of them are very successful and they're living their dream. So just living in LA gave me, and that initial work experience gave me a great deal of confidence because my parents, fortunately, I grew up in a very, very nice home. My dad was a surgeon, but they would always say to me, "Oh, Ed, be careful, you might get hurt." But my grandparents, who I listened to apparently more, said, "Oh, Ed, you're incredible. You can do anything." And so I left. I was the only one in my firm, in the firm that I was working for in New York to leave New York. I went to the other coast and pursued a new career in
Yeah, everybody thought
1970.
I was crazy too. Everybody thought I was
Yeah,
crazy when I left. I was a
yeah.
police officer, and my parents didn't like that either. But
Yeah.
I had a dream, and
Mm.
like Ed, like you said, they all talked about me afterwards. Oh, like I told people I'm not coming back, and I didn't, and they talked about me. But I have such great fond memories, and whether you can string it, it's almost like a puzzle. My life, you can see me going from this step to this step to this step to where I am now. And
Yeah.
people ask me all the time, well, you're so lucky, you're so successful, you have this, you have that. I said, well, no, 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 I'm not lucky. I lived a life. You're seeing the credits after a whole movie. There was a whole movie
Yeah.
before the credits that you're seeing. And but you're
You've
right,
got
Ed.
to
It's
take,
all
you've
from
got to,
yourself.
in my book, one of the themes is life is, and I've read a lot of biographies and autobiographies and writing my own book, and they typically boil down to life is half about fate, luck, and half of what you do with it. You've got to execute.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
again,
Showed
the
up.
harder you work, the luckier you get, but you've got to take chances and never look back, but hopefully learn from your mistakes. But I think I gave people confidence, I think, or
You did.
I didn't like being around negative. If someone was negative in my house, I sent them home.
Wow.
That's basically what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm saying is
Wow.
you gave me the thought process that if that person can do it, I can do it too. And I carried that into politics and business. And I have a lot of gratitude to you because to be honest with you, my father, I love my father, he passed, but he was the opposite. It was always a negative kind of a thing. And Ed
Of
always
course
said, well,
it
you
is.
can do that. And why can't you do that, Jack? Why can't you do this? And
Yeah. Yeah.
even when
But
even when you came to visit, you weren't surprised I was running for Senate. Oh, well, that's great. You should be. He said, why not? And
yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's definitely something that it's too bad that bodybuilders today don't have it because you can see they don't have the guidance that we had in the 90s.
No, no. I mean, um, especially back then, everybody, I guess you guys can all relate. If you said that you loved bodybuilding and you wanted to do something with it, either you would get laughed at, you
Right.
wouldn't find backing from the parents. Who knows how many times I used to buy Flex magazine and Muscle Mag, and my friends would be like, what are you reading, man? You like guys, and so I used to stick them in car magazines, and just
People thought you were weird. People
yeah,
thought
and
I was
always
weird.
hiding them, not reading, in front of
Kevin,
everyone.
what's so ironic now is that actually there is a lot of money in
Of
bodybuilding.
course. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there are, Jack, I don't know how many expensive cars were in the parking lot when you were
That
there,
Yeah.
but there were
everybody,
a lot of people, a lot of personal trainers
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
50 to 100 or $200 an hour.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was as a trainer.
uh,
I was training. Ed helped me with that too. He put me at the front desk and said, "Here, work the front desk for a few weeks. You'll get some clients and you can
Yeah.
make some money on the side." And I did that too. And that I earned money. And yeah, I mean, you look at Mike O'Hearn. He's a perfect example of
Yeah.
when I back in the
actually,
'90s. He was just a
I
personal
met
trainer.
Mike O'Hearn in my gym in Seattle. I was partners with Jack and Leslie Wadsworth in three clubs in Seattle. And I went up to Mike and I said, "You belong in LA." And he came down. I have a wonderful letter from his mother thanking me for getting her son down and making sure he stayed natural.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Ed,
Eric,
Ed,
Eric. It's a
What?
full-time bodybuilder, Eric, aren't you?
What? Yeah. My father, it's funny because I remember when I first started getting into bodybuilding when I was like, because I was skinny as a twig, that it looked like I probably would always weigh 120 pounds. I remember my father said to me, Eric, you can't, I don't know what you're planning on doing with your life, but you should be carrying around a briefcase, not a barbell.
Yeah,
And he said, "What do you think? You're going to make money in wearing sweatpants?" I said, "Watch me." So I,
Yeah,
you
my
know,
father
he
said the same
he
thing. You go,
never supported. He's like, "What are you going to do with this?" And I
yeah, my
said, "I'm
dad.
going to figure out a way." And it wasn't even that I went into it myself to say, "Oh, I'm going to be Mr. Olympia." I just loved the sport and I loved the
yeah,
whole training and
yeah.
aspect
Right.
of it, the science and all that stuff. And
It's a
now he's
call.
now he's proud. But Ed, you know what I wanted to ask you? Because we were talking about the athletes and stuff that you would bring to your home and mentor them and give them a place to stay. But when you first bought into, or when you first got involved with Gold's Gym, I think you got involved with a couple of partners. What did was there did you ever think it was going to become? Did you look at it and say, this has the potential to become, a place that's going to eventually have hundreds of locations? Or did you just think this was going to be a nice gym I'm going to own? Like, did you see the potential?
It took me about 6 years, I think, to see the potential. I bought the gym with Pete Grimkowski and Tim Kimber in 1979, but I didn't stop working as an architect until 1985. So for 6 years, I really led three lives. I was a gym owner. I would do the books at night. I was a architect working for a big firm in LA, or many different firms. And then I was also a parking consultant. That was one of my strengths. So I was working 100-hour weeks, but then in 1985, my last project was Fox Plaza, the building that's in the first Die Hard movie with Bruce Willis,
Wow.
and
Wow.
that was 1985. And I love architecture, I love design, but I felt leaving to go full time with Gold's Gym and help with the franchising, that was more meaningful. And we took off rather quickly. We went from it was a straight line graph from one gym to 535 when we sold the first time in 1999. So
Wow.
I was involved in 37 of the gyms with partners, a lot of them former house guests. Um, some of them have done quite well.
Yeah. So you obviously were one involved with the Gold's Gym that's still standing in Venice. Yes, that
Right. I designed that actually. When we bought the gym, it was in Santa Monica on Second Street, and I was working for Charles Eames. You probably heard of the Eames lounge chair, an incredible American designer. And there was a warehouse, first bay of a 4-bay warehouse available down the street. And I said to Pete and Tim, why don't we move the gym back to its roots? Because we were getting a lot of grief from the Santa Monica police and also for our landlord. So in 1981, I actually did the drawings to move the gym back to Venice, and it's not a design that I would recommend for anywhere else in the world, but it worked great for Venice. No air conditioning, no heating, pretty crude, but it's still going strong. I mean, it's not what it doesn't feel like it did back in the 80s or 90s, but it still has some magic left in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I was there from 2000. I trained there every day from 2014 to 2020, right until COVID, and they closed it down. And even at that time, it was still incredible. I mean, every day was, Dexter Jackson, Sean Roden, and Sergio Oliva Jr., and Tito Raymond, and Mickey Rourke, and Ted Danson. So it was still great back then. I don't think it's any, from what I hear now, it's more like a 24-hour fitness than a Gold's Gym, but it is still standing. But that place was magic. That place was pure magic.
it
Yeah,
was
I went back about 5 years. It was right before COVID, I think. Maybe it was after COVID. It was about 5 years ago. So, and it was not the same at all. There was some traces. Charles Glass is still there, of course. Hearn Fairman.
Certain people will never leave.
But
Well,
Rick, Rick,
change is the one constant in life, and
yeah, yeah,
I could
absolutely.
not have done back what I did then with today's millennials
no,
and Gen Z.
Right.
no, no, no.
Um, my
Yeah.
my part I was involved in 37 Gold's Gyms in 7 states, and my former partners, my managers, all tell me, Ed, we couldn't do this today with today's,
No, it was very social. It was a very social kind of thing. That was where you made your friends and your girlfriends and
Yeah.
you found your wives. And now you go to the gym, even me, I put headphones on and I listen to my
Well,
Spotify.
Jack, and that's it. A lot of it was the music.
Mhm.
Nowadays, everybody's got something in their ear, but back then, everybody was involved in. It was like going to a disco
Right,
or a
right,
nightclub.
Yeah, yeah.
right. It was
I
social.
today when I was listening to Chris and Dave said something. I don't know if it was Chris or Dave. Back then, if I wanted to meet Ed or Eric or Jack, I had to get on a plane and go to Venice Gym, right? That was the
Right.
hotspot. There's no other way. So there would always be that meeting point, a physical meeting point, because there's no social media, no mobile phones, no Facebook, YouTube, and all this stuff.
That's why they
And
call it the Mecca.
today you just sent an Instagram. Hi Ed, I've been a long time fan. Blah blah. You want to come on our show? Jack is on our show. So like, I didn't have to go to Venice Gym. I mean, I wish I could have been there back then. I mean, I saw all the videos, and I mean, I was brought up knowing that there's Venice. It's the Mecca of bodybuilding and stuff. But that's the difference today. It's just everybody's doing their things on their own. Everybody makes their own world, their own. Their
Kevin, the magazines were the social media of the day. You
That's
had to
right.
be
Oh,
That's
Venice. I
it.
mean,
And I
I
miss
miss
them
them.
dearly. I really miss them. I mean,
it's a
I still have my Flex magazines in plastic, from the Lee Haney era, So I mean, I still keep. They're all still with the address of my house in Toronto. I was what when Haney 84, 85. I was 14, 15 years old. Look how long. And I used to. I mentioned it before. I used to go with my bike because driving license at 16 to the main road in Toronto, and there was the Muscle Mac shop, and he used to put the pictures of the Olympia in black and white on the window, and that's how I would find out who won. You know,
but
like
in Venice Beach, you could go in the gym and there'd be like, remember Don Ross, Ed?
Yeah.
oh
He'd
yeah,
be, he'd be
yeah,
walking around with a camera, or
yeah.
there's
yeah,
a myriad of other
Don
photographers.
Don was one of my favorites, actually.
yeah,
Yeah, he was very kind to me. He started. I remember I always had really big traps and a big neck, so in Muscle Mag. He started the Jack London neck contest. I don't know if you remember that, but every month people would submit pictures to compare their necks against mine,
Well,
and he'd say, "Oh, you didn't
that's
win."
that's what I would look for with talent. I would look for a big neck, big feet, and big hands. As Jimmy Quinn, what do people do with have big hands and big feet? Well, they wear big gloves and big
Big
shoes.
gloves and big shoes, right?
But
Exactly.
but no, that's a genetic component. I mean, genetics may only be 5% of it, but without genetics, forget it.
Right, that's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
But that was the thing that's what made Venice so. And Ed, you probably don't remember, but I always had blonde. I had very long blonde hair, and I was pretty. And I remember one time I was all scruffy, I had a hat on, and Ed said, "Go back home." What's wrong? He said, "Go back in the house, take a shower, comb your hair, act like you need to go to the gym. Every time you go to the gym, you need to act like there's going to be a photographer there,
Wow.
because there's going to be a photographer there." And
Yeah.
so many times I can tell you that there's pictures of me in bodybuilding magazines with Sharon Bruneau. I got this big spread with Sharon Bruneau, center of Muscle and Fitness, because the other guy didn't show up, and I was walking, and Sharon said, "Hey Jack, can you help us out?" And I jumped into photographs, and it's probably one of the most iconic pictures for me, anyway.
Well, Jack,
Where
and
she's
that's
probably remember Ed. She's benching 315, and I'm looking at her like, oh my god, it was a spread. But if
well, you
not for Ed
can
telling
you
me,
can
make
all
sure
imagine how
Is
frustrated
this
I am
is
with
this
all
you,
the
Jack? Is this
busted.
you?
that
Yeah,
is me. That is me at
You
300
you
pounds.
could have easily went into wrestling. I mean, come
Yeah, yeah, but I was too short. I wanted to. There was a bunch of wrestlers that Richie had introduced me to. Remember, I tried out for American Gladiators, but I was too short. They want guys that are 6'4",
Wow.
6'5".
all the studios, their idea of a bodybuilder is 6 feet, and they don't realize that most of the guys who get into bodybuilding are shorter.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
So I tried, but and I did tried out for some small movie parts, but bodybuilding was really
but Jack, that's the important thing is you try.
Yeah.
I did.
You
Yeah.
never know. I mean, again, that's the luck of the draw. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
there's always an element of luck.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I
If
So
you
I
mean,
went and
don't,
tried,
if you
and I
don't
have a lot
try,
of,
you're not going to get lucky.
yeah.
yeah, that's right. And I have a lot of great stories, great memories, and to me, it all accumulated. Even with my political run, it created business opportunities for me. And it's funny because in business, people in the finance world love me because I'm different because I was a bodybuilder. People in bodybuilding love me because I'm a businessman.
Yeah.
So I kind of and get the benefit of both worlds.
Yeah.
Because I remember people would say to me, "Well, what do you, I thought you were running for office. Why are you? Because I started competing again after I ran for office. Well, why can't I do both? Why can't I
Yeah.
do everything? And
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
Well,
learned.
look at Arnold. I think Arnold
Right.
certainly was a great governor, and he would have been a great president had he
Yeah.
been able to run.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
Uh,
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. Like um like back then, I like I noticed photographers used to roam freely in the gym, especially
Yep.
Golds.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know him. He lives not far from me. Raymond Cassard, you know him, Ed. He used to from Malta. He used to come and take photos. He
mhm,
was working with Muscle Time.
right.
Used to do those videos and those. Um, he started showing me photos from way back when even Arnold used to compete, and like, there's so much history out there that you know I keep telling these people you got to do a book, and just say the story behind the photo, because obviously they took thousands and thousands and thousands of photos during their careers, but there's always special times where some people don't know the story behind everything. It's like there's so much history in the sport of bodybuilding, and back then, like you said, with them, back then there were the magazines, and we used to be passionate about these magazines, and today today the younger bodybuilders, the younger athletes don't know that feeling that you wait for 1 month to 2 months to get that magazine and learn about who's coming up and who won what show. Because I mean, you couldn't find out who won a show after unless the magazine came out. You know, there was you would find out who won the Olympia a month, 2 months afterwards. It was
Everything's
crazy.
different. You couldn't get in those magazines. I mean, I got in a few, but I never got on a
Yeah,
cover.
yeah,
But the everything's different, including becoming a pro. I mean,
yeah,
becoming a pro today
yeah.
is much
Today,
easier than it was back then. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
people say to me, "Well, you're not an IFBB pro." Yeah, well,
So
I remember my first run at it was at the USA's when Chris Cormier won. I
wow.
mean, back then it was, some of the guys like me and Edgar Fletcher and a lot of other guys that never turned pro. Matt Mendenhall, right? Ed,
Yeah,
Matt, people,
yeah,
people that
I,
never
in my
turned.
book, I call Matt the greatest bodybuilder who never was.
yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah,
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 How
And
about Rory Liedemeier too?
yeah.
I
Roy was another one.
yeah,
kind
Amazing
of put
physique.
myself in that category of guys that never made it all the way. But
yeah.
like today, I'm not impressed with the bodybuilders of
No,
today.
today there's like, I mean, like going back, like to the magazine thing, just before I end up that part. Even when you see Jay Cutler do a podcast in his office, his real office, right? Not the one.
Mhm.
What does he have? All the magazines behind him. For them, it was
Right.
something,
Yeah,
All right, you won the title, but you were on a magazine cover,
yeah,
You're
yeah.
there,
It
the
was
promo for the
something.
Olympia, or it was something special. Even having a spread inside, like you said, that's cemented in time. Social media comes and goes, but when you're in a book, you're in a magazine. It's amazing. Like, if I did an interview not long ago about we took excerpts from an interview me and Eric did of a guy, a competitor. They call him D Hestney on Instagram. He's with the IVB of Europe. He's a pro of the IVB of Europe. They did a spread about it and things. I kept bugging them, give me the PDFs. I want this spread, and they're like, Kev, you're so passionate about you want, because I said that's a magazine, because they still do a magazine here, for bodybuilding, but it is just a different time. It's just a different time.
Yep.
So
One of my biggest goals when I was coming up in the sport was I said I wanted to get an article in one of the magazines.
yeah,
That was one of my biggest goals.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the first article that I had sent in to was a Muscle Mag International article that you could just send in a submission, and the
Yep.
next thing, a couple months later, a check came in the mail and said, "Your article is in."
Wow.
And then then they said, "Can you write more?" So then, before I was done, I wrote for Muscle Mag International, Planet Muscle, Iron Man, Flex, Muscle and Fitness, everything, every single magazine out there. I made so much of my career writing. I think I have almost 1,000 published articles.
Wow.
And man, do I miss doing that.
Oh, it's different.
I miss, especially for me, because I would see the magazine come to my mailbox and I'd be looking through to see which guys they put with my article.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who'd
Yeah.
they use
I
for my
used to,
article, you know?
I used to write for Animal. Animal sponsored me
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah.
when I made my comeback in 2004. That's how I got my nickname Rhino, was from Animal, and that was great writing those articles. And well,
I love
for
it.
there
I love it.
for Animal, it was less an article and more a character. It was more like a character that was created.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they wanted us to
Well,
create these
Kevin
hardcore characters.
and Eric, getting back to one of the titles in one of the chapters of my book is Give to Get. We gave probably 36 photographers and people from the magazines free memberships, and
Yeah.
they could roam the gym, and
Yeah.
they made Gold's Gym famous. They made it
Of
the Mecca.
course.
We
Of
the
course.
Weider magazines were published in 36 different languages, 3 in India. Right now, there are 137 Gold's Gyms in India, and I think that's a result of
Of
the
course.
Weider magazines.
Of
There
course. Of
are
course.
105 in Japan.
Yeah.
So because of that, I encourage gym owners to give away some memberships. Don't
Yeah. Yeah.
hoard it all. Firemen were half price, police were free.
Yeah.
We didn't charge any of the celebrities. If I saw someone talented, I wanted them in the gym so that
Of
they
course.
would help make Gold's Gym famous by getting photographed by the
Of course.
photographers that roam
Yeah.
the gym.
Yeah, always going back to Cutler because he's so popular. I watch all his stuff. Even when he goes back to Gold's Gym, he was there a couple of weeks ago. For him, he still finds that excitement in it, and the older guys recognizing, obviously, Charles Glass and Mike O'Hearn, they're all there, and and
Rick Valente's there. He's a good friend.
By
yeah,
the way, let me
Oh, Rick's
tell you
great.
about Rick Valenti's book is a great read.
Yeah, it is. I bought it.
You should get him on your podcast. But
Oh, that's really smart. I'd love to get him on.
he has
people
a new
ask
book
me,
out. He has a new
yeah,
book
the book
out.
is out, and
Oh,
people ask me, what was it like? Well, his book does a better job than mine in describing what Gold's Gym Venice was like during those glory days.
wow.
It's probably twice the length of my book. Very well written.
Yeah. I love books. I
A
like,
lot
I
of
love, yeah.
a lot of great information. You should get him on your
Yeah.
show.
Yeah, we'll try. Yeah, I'll try to get a hold of him, um it's like it's an uphill battle sometimes to get people, because it's very hard to sometimes to get them to read their social media and things like that, the messages,
Yeah,
but
tell
um
me tell me about it.
yeah. Me and Eric, we've been running around some people, they talk to you all the time, and then you send them a message and all you see is like a thumbs up. It's like, answer me.
Yeah, but we've had some good. I mean, we had Lee Haney
Yeah,
came on right away. Flex
yeah,
Wheeler's already been on twice.
yeah, yeah,
Rich
yeah.
Kaspari came on. Some people are very
Yeah,
open to it.
Haney's
Other
gonna come
people
on
are
again. Yeah, yeah.
elusive. But
So
Jack, you know what I wanted to ask you real quick, Kevin, if you don't mind.
no, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was curiosity because I know that you met Ed. He brought you to California. He taught you so much. Kind of launched who you are today. Um, because I always like to know about bodybuilders who go on to do other things very successfully. And I'm always curious, do you feel that what you learned, or let's say how I put it, some of the stuff that Ed taught you in terms of just like you were talking about before, like he said, go home and always be ready to be on film or whatever and look better and so on and so forth. Also, the discipline and dedication and everything that it takes to be a bodybuilder. Do you feel like bodybuilding sort of like was a foundation for you to become successful as a businessman and politician? Do you feel like
Oh,
it crosses
absolutely.
over?
There's no question about it. I wouldn't say bodybuilding per se, but I would. And what I mean by that is there's planning, there's strategy, there's
Right.
focus, there's discipline, but there's also, you have to know, there's this old saying in the world that goes like this: if you don't know where you're going, I can promise you're never going to get there.
Yeah.
And with bodybuilding, it's very simple. You have to be able to plan 6 months in advance. This is how, in my mind, what I want to look like for the show. You don't look like that now because you're in the off season and you're soft. but you want to look, you want to put on 5 pounds of muscle, and you want to have your waist a little smaller and be, 1% leaner and so forth. And then you backtrack, right? By planning your eating, your carbs, your protein, your training every day. And every day, you got to do it every day, every day. And life and success is not about these huge things that happen on Instagram. They're about the little tiny little steps that happen quietly and quiet. And like they say, integrity is what you do when nobody's looking. So absolutely 1000% is what it all comes back to, the same principles, which are principles that, yes, Ed taught me. Some of them I learned from my father. Some of them you just are inert and you just kind of figure it out. But mainly it's focus and it's discipline, right? Passion's great, but passion wears off. Discipline is the key. Every day getting up, training. Akim and I used to train twice a day. We tried everything, and every day you go to the gym. Every day was the same thing. Every day it was mundane to some point. Yeah. In business, it's the same thing. Okay, you have to grow you don't grow like a hockey stick. You grow slowly. Yeah. 10, 15% a year. If you grow 50% in a year, you're probably something's wrong. Something's not working. Yeah. But the most important piece is, like, I could tell you right now, if you asked me, Eric, Jack, where are you going to be in 5 years? I can tell you exactly where I'm going to be. I can tell you what my income's going to be. I can tell you what my value, what my assets are going to be. And I could tell you exactly why and how. And bodybuilding is the same thing. You have to, and powerlifting was the same. We would do 12-week programs, 12% increase every week, 13%, 14% increases. So yeah, I mean, it's all the same. And the most successful people in life, in business, you'll see, were former athletes. We're former successful athletes. Yeah. Bodybuilders, like Ed had said, not as many bodybuilders have gone on to do other things, but there's other variables involved in that reasoning. With me, bodybuilding was always a hobby. I tried to make it a profession to an extent, but I always had an education, and I always knew that there was, that I knew that I didn't have the genetics of a Jay Cutler or Lee Priest, and that was never going to be enough for me and to make the money that I wanted to make to live the life that I live now. So, I'm not buying a Ferrari on, from a Universal Nutrition contract who's giving me free supplements. You know what I mean? Like, so, and in my vision, those were the things that I wanted. And again, I envisioned myself at 57 years old being exactly where I am. And so, and Ed, just so you know, the house you were at 10 years ago, I'm in a different house now. I moved to a bigger house. And in 10 years from now, I'll be in something else, and I can tell you exactly where I'll be. I'll probably be in Florida, and so on and so forth. So yeah, absolutely. It's the same. It's absolutely the same. And I would tell you that a lot of bodybuilders, people, like, I don't want to say they laugh at bodybuilders, but they think they're muscle heads. Yeah. We're not muscle heads. We're actually, you have to be quite intelligent to be able to do the math and do the strategy and do the execution. It's a combination that if you put together in business or in life, you're lethal. You can be lethal.
Yeah, I mean, and certainly because in getting, my relationship with Jay Cutler has grown through the years. And I watch him carefully about the way he handles his businesses. And I remember how he was as a bodybuilder. He was just so regimented. When other people were cheating on he always would say, I loved it when other people would cheat on their diet, I'd double my cardio. Like, he was always trying to be jumping even further ahead. Yeah. And I remember there was one year he tried waking up every 2 hours throughout the night and eating another meal, so they would eat 15 meals.
I remember
he was so dedicated to it. And now he is so successful.
He doesn't stop
in the world of bodybuilding, but not as a bodybuilder, but in the world of bodybuilding. But he hustles day and night. He never stops pushing. He's such a great ambassador for the sport. He's the last one to stay in an autograph session. Like, I feel like he really brought everything from what to become Mr. Olympia 4 times into his business, and that's why he's one of the most successful bodybuilders, on the planet. So,
yep, no doubt. Yeah, and a great guy too. He's always kind of, when I see him, if I see him in events, he always stops everything to talk to me and, Jack, Yeah, he's very kind to me. Very good guy. We have history, thanks to Ed. So.
Yeah. So, has there any, I mean, obviously you guys can't Um, some stories are always kept between some people. But were there any like funny moments between, I don't know, Lee Priest, Jay Cutler, between you guys, or something that stands out?
Come on, Jack, give us the deal. What craziness did you get involved in
Me,
with some of these guys at Ed's
I
house?
think I think that's for another podcast without Ed being here. But
Oh, okay. All right, try
um,
to tell one that's PG.
Yeah, yeah.
geez, I
Or
Or
maybe
even
Ed
a
has a
Gold's
funny
Gym story.
story. Yeah.
Even a Gold's Gym story, something crazy that happened at
okay.
Gold's
I
Gym.
got a good one for you. So I'm training with Akim one day, and Akim, as Ed will remember, it's very Ed used to make fun of him. He said, "I must train." He was German, and he spoke in a very heavy accent, and he was very regimented, and he was very like disciplined, and he very rarely smiled. Although I made him smile, he very rarely smiled. So one day we're doing biceps, and he disappears. And so where'd he go? So he's gone for 15, 20 minutes. I can't find him. He comes back and he looks at me, he puts his head down. He says, I cannot do it. I cannot win. So what are you talking about? He says, I cannot beat him. So I said, well, what are you talking about? He goes, go in the posing room. Now, Gold's Gym had 2 posing rooms on the other side. He said, go in there. He said, go in and look. And this was the first year Flex Wheeler had turned pro.
Well,
Oh.
So and they were getting ready for the Arnold. I was training with Occam to get ready for the Arnold, and so was of course Flex. I go in the posing room, and I knew Chris and Rico. I still talk to Rico McClinton. So I was
Rico's such a cool guy. I love Rico.
Yeah, he's a great guy. So they let me in, and I'm sitting there, and Flex is standing there, and I mean, I had never seen, and to this day, will never see anything like it in my life. His waist was like 20 inch, looked like it was like this big. His shoulders, he looked like he was 300 pounds. He was about 220.
yeah.
Anyway, so he's standing there and he goes, he stands there and goes like, and I do it like Transformers, chink, and he ducks his feet and his quads pop out and his lats pop out. And I was like, what the fuck? Right?
Didn't look real.
Wait, I'm not done. So I look at him and I'm like, I said to Rico, what the fuck? And Rico goes, hold on, watch this. And Flex takes another breath. And I swear to God, it went chink, chink. And it was like Transformers. 2 more muscles popped out of his quads. His lats popped out even further. And his waist looked like it didn't look human. And to this day, I mean, I train with Dorian and I've seen them all of them. Okay. None of them looked like this guy because his waist was so tiny and his shoulders were so big and round and wide. It was like, it didn't look like a caricature. So I look at this and I'm like, oh, I had never seen, I mean, I was involved in bodybuilding, obviously. I'd never seen anything like this in my entire life. And I was like flabbergasted. And I was literally like almost had a panic attack. And I walked out, I left and I went back up to Occam and I said, you're right. There's no fucking way you're beating him.
I knew you were going to say that.
No way. And he didn't.
Jeff,
there's no way you're going to say to him, you could beat him.
You bring up a good point, though. I mean, Flex and I were partners in a duplex. I knew him well, but I feel like he was at his best the year that he turned pro. Unfortunately, after that he began looking for that next silver bullet, that next whatever it was going to take.
He never had the mentality.
But he should never have varied, and that's what a problem with today's bodybuilders. They think bigger is better.
Yeah.
And they've lost the. Flex had one of the most incredible looks that Jack described.
Yeah.
And he really should have just sort of stayed there, stopped there.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I felt. He looked the best the first year. And then after that, and again, I'm not going to listen. I have nothing but respect for the guy and I don't speak to him much, but if I do, he remembers me. So I would never say anything negative about him. Yeah. It just seemed that maybe
this
he didn't
is Akim, right?
That's Akim. That's Akim.
Akim. I'm sorry.
Actually, Akim stayed in my first house with Mike Matarazzo, and there was some language issues there. I'll never forget when Akim couldn't believe how much food, Mike being an American ate, and Mike said, "Well, yeah, you should try it. You should try it. You should, try eating like I do." Of course, Occam thought he meant you should, help yourself to my food.
Well, Occam, when he came back and lived with me at Wavecrest, he would purge. He would eat and purge.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
But anyway, that was Occam, and Akam and I were shaking our heads like, there's no way. And, Akam was huge. He was 6'1",
He was huge, a monster.
290. He was a gigantic guy. And he was just, his head was down. But he was a character, that guy. I'll never forget one time we were at Wavecrest, and Akam was very like stern and very stubborn. And there was this guy, Louis, who lived there as well. And Louis and I always ran around with girls because Louis was very handsome and I was as well. And so we brought these girls back, and Akam had this magazine. So he was holding the magazine. He was sitting in the living room with the magazine like this, like hiding his face because he was scared to death of the girls, Ed. And he wouldn't talk to the girls. And it was the funniest thing I ever seen. This 300-pound guy scared to death of these two little blonde girls. He wouldn't talk to them. And then the other funny story I have is when I first moved into Wavecrest, I became friends with Samir. And Samir was like my idol.
Samir's a character.
He came over one day and he knew that I was enthralled with him and, that I looked up to him. And he tells me, okay, Jack, go get the blender. And so I get the blender out and he makes me put fruit in it and oatmeal in it. And then he says, now get some raw steak and put the raw steak in there. And we cut up steak. And I mean, it was the most disgusting. There was red meat in there. There was all this stuff that was, it was the most disgusting thing you've ever seen. He's like, now you've got to drink that. It's going to make you strong. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, you got to drink that. He's like, I'm telling you, it's the secret.
He's messing with you.
This asshole gets me to drink this, and
he's messing with you.
Yeah, it was the funniest thing.
He was messing with you.
Yeah, that was the kind of drink that the Ultimate Warrior would make in my house and chug it down.
Yeah, well, he probably got it from him. He probably got it from him and then used it on me as a joke. But Samir was funny. He was a funny guy.
He's a character, that guy.
I remember when Samir came, he had bought I think a new Jeep, and the license plate said Mr. O, Mr. Zero. And, he said, what do you think of my license plate? Well, I said, well, you might think it's Mr. O, but it could also just be Mr. Zero.
Oh, he must have loved that one, huh?
And then you remember Frank Hilbrand, right, Ed? But he didn't live with you. Yeah. Oh, did he live with you at all?
He stayed with me. Unfortunately, he died quite a few years ago. But I had probably 24 or maybe 36 German house guests. That was the biggest foreign group, and he was one of my favorites.
Yeah, he and I became
he was a successful trainer in Vegas, but died.
He dropped dead. He had a heart attack right on the floor. Yeah. Jay called me and told me, he's like, Frank just had a heart attack. That was maybe 15 years ago or so, maybe longer.
He died very young.
But he was dating at the time. He was dating Brooke Burke. You remember that? You know who that star is?
Yeah, of course.
Frank had this Corvette, and Frank was flipping out because she dumped him for. I'm not going to say who, but she dumped him for a rich guy, and so Frank asked me to take his Corvette and follow her around. So I was following her, flying on her for him because he was having a fit. He was like, I don't know what to do. He'd come over to my house. He smoked.
Yeah,
they're Germans. They smoke. So he would come over to Wavecrest in the apartment where Darren used to live when I was living down there. And he's smoking away, going, I don't know what, pacing back and forth in the apartment. Jack, you got to go follow her. You got to let me know what she's doing. You got to call me. So he made me take his car, and I'd follow her around for like a half a day, like just driving around, watching where she would go to the spa and go here and get her nails done. And it was funny. But there's a lot of other stories that.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure you got hundreds. Yeah. I'm sure Ed does from his house guests as well. Ed, you must have some crazy stories that happened at your place.
Some are in my book, and actually I'm working on a screenplay right now for Netflix. So they want a little more sex, and I think I had 3 house guests of the 537 that murdered somebody. So I can give them a lot of a lot of material.
Yeah,
you talking about Titus?
Titus
was one. Yeah, I can talk about him, but actually I'm not so sure he actually did what he's being charged with. But because I had to suspend him 3 times for fighting in the gym, and I don't think he would have used a taser on this woman. He would have just grabbed her throat and choked her to death. But that's my personal opinion. So I think he's innocent. I think it was a domestic fight over theft and other. Actually, if they had just called the police,
it would have been done.
They would probably be, he would be free.
Yeah.
But they tried to hide it in a very fashion. But
I'll tell you a funny story, Ed. You remember he was dating Debbie Halo? You remember Debbie
he
Halo?
dated every. I mean, I had to actually make a rule that unless you were married, you couldn't get a free membership for your girlfriend because I mean, he had a girlfriend every 1 or 2 weeks.
It'd be 20 memberships.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was dating Debbie Halo, and so was I at the same time. So he was not real happy with me.
He
Wow.
was a hothead, wasn't he? He was a real hothead.
He's a very violent guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you train there when the Barbarians were training there?
I did. Just yes. Just as they were kind of phasing out, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
because that was a nutty crew, right?
Peter was a great guy, though. He was
Actually, I just got involved in that because apparently another podcast was talking about
Yeah.
Barbarians versus Lalo Zato, and
Yeah. I heard. Yeah.
I guess somebody asked, is that true? And I said, without knowing all the details that were talked about, I said yes. I mean, they were at each other's throats, literally.
Yeah. And I think Lee Priest got involved in it somehow, and it's become a big snowball now, getting bigger and bigger. But yeah, I heard about it a couple of days ago. I heard, some people talking about it. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I didn't get in the middle of any of that.
I know. I mean, I don't know how long you guys can stay, but let's fast forward today. Obviously, bodybuilding changed, as we know. Pro cards are given out, thousands a year, other than 2 or 3. Back then, when a guy turned pro, he was qualified to be a pro. Today, sometimes a person turns pro and you don't see them again, right? So it's like they just got a pro card just to be a trainer or whatever.
Right.
As well, which I think is increasing instead of, declining, the deaths of so many young athletes, 40, 30, some are in their 20s. Do you like, obviously, I was a bit young back in those days, 14, 15. You won't hear about these things. They won't write about them in the magazines. Was it that bad back then?
No. And I can tell you from personal. So I'm going to give you some personal information about me that I can speak to this subject personally because I had heart issues myself. I had an enlarged heart. I had my aortic valve replaced, but that was genetic. But I had a heart attack as well. Yeah. And when my aortic valve issue became apparent, the doctor said that my heart was enlarged. And the reason why my heart was enlarged, it had never happened back in the 90s, or it only happened because when I made a comeback in 2005,
okay,
I was taking obviously the normal PEDs, but I was taking growth hormone combined with insulin, and I was doing massive quantities of it. You're supposed to do 4 to 6 IUs a day. I was doing 17 a day.
No, 17 IU of GH?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the good stuff too,
wow.
not Chinese. And so, yeah, I mean, I could show you pictures of me at 52. I'm 285. I look better at 52 than I did when I was 32 because of that. Yeah, now, that looked great, but the problem was the doctor said, look, your heart is an organ and it grows just like everything else.
Yeah, that's
what happens is your heart gets too big and your heart squeezes like a pump. If it gets too big, it can't squeeze hard enough to get the blood to go, to your arteries, and you literally die like that.
It, Jack?
That's me at 50. That's me in 2000. That's me at 2020.
Wow.
5 years ago. I'm 52 there. I'm 57 now.
Were you born in 68?
Yeah, I was. And
so,
to look like that, it was like, I was everything I could take. I was, just because I wanted to make a comeback, but I did a lot of damage to myself, which did eventually, after what happened was I had an incident where I was coughing up blood, and I went to the doctor, and the doctor told me this stuff. So I went off everything for 2 years, and my heart luckily shrank back down. You see this with certain people, and I don't know what Jay Cutler took. Would never speculate, but I would assume that people like Ronnie and he and whoever stop taking the GH and the insulin, and you come back. It does come back. You do. Your body is very resilient. I was lucky enough to stop before I, had a real. I did have a heart attack before that, but it was a minor one. It was a blockage. It was not like an incident. But to address your issue, yeah, this is why people are dying. Most of them are heart issues. Most of them are from in my opinion, the GH and the insulin growing their organs too big, and they pass out. They either die immediately, like you see these kids on the basketball court the doctor explained that that's what happens with these kids.
Yeah.
It's natural for them, but with bodybuilders, obviously, it's self-induced from the gear. Or some of them pass out, hit their head. What happens when
Jack, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, there's definitely too much growth hormone has definitely led to the early deaths of some people I know. But I think the more serious killer is synthol.
Yeah, I mean,
I know a half dozen guys that have died from that, and I was fortunate enough to actually talk to one of the doctors right after the person died, and he said you can't inject impure fluids in your body and not expect trouble. So in my book, I don't necessarily come out in favor of steroids, but I can't honestly pinpoint them as killing somebody like I can too much growth hormone or
That's right.
Or synthol.
The synthol is not something I ever used, Ed. I mean, I never really, I didn't understand it, and it kind of scared me. But I just saw recently a study that was done on bodybuilders over the last 15 years, and it's 95% of the people died from heart. There's cardiovascular issues. So it's both. Ed is right. The synthol is also another thing. To Ed's point, you can't inject something in your body, and your body has to assimilate that and process that. And it's not something that I ever did, so I can't say that was an issue that I had my heart issues
obviously
from.
back then, I don't know, maybe I'm incorrect, but I don't think back then, obviously, what there was better, right? It was more, it was,
Well, it was minor. It's
Yeah.
called escalene or escalene.
no,
That's
I'm
what-
saying like in general,
We've talked about
PEDs,
that.
right? Yeah, back then, what they were taking, or was like a fraction of what they're doing
Oh
today.
yeah. Oh,
And
even me. I took so much
Yeah.
more when I came. I took so much more testosterone and tren and all this stuff
yeah,
afterwards than I did back in the 90s, because you couldn't afford it, and you didn't need it because it was
Yeah.
all real, and it was,
And like
And-
you guys said,
Kevin and Eric, and I was paying for it typically. None of most of my house guests never worked while they were staying
True.
there.
yeah,
And so
Paid for
it
mine.
got to be, I mean, I wouldn't pay for more than what I thought really they needed. So I could send you the routine back then. And it was under $700 for a cycle. The guys went on 2 cycles a year. So they were on for, 3 or 4 months and off for 3 or 4 months. So it was much safer there. A lot of their levels would go back to normal when they got off. So,
But-
no, it's appalling what people are doing now and the cost.
but like, as obviously the thing, well, back then they were better, it wasn't illegal and all this stuff. And it's like, I don't want to sound, everybody has a dream. A bodybuilder, he lifts a weight, I want to be Mr. Olympia. But that's where like a guy like Ed comes in, or like, somebody that's like a mentor or something, like, or like Eric, he's a coach. Like, they'll look at the person and say, listen, you can take a truckload. You're not going to arrive to the last 20 of the top Olympia.
Yeah, but
So-
you have the opposite. I'm going to stop you because you actually have the opposite problem right now. You have trainers who, because Eric, I'm sure Eric does not fall into this, because
No,
Eric,
that's
And
what
I know
I'm saying.
exactly what you're going to say.
Yeah,
and I
there
agree
are
with
a
it
lot of
already.
trainers,
It's
and
money.
I was on a podcast once because I used to train people too, like on the side, just for fun.
Yeah.
And I was talking about how if I meet somebody and I didn't think they could be a competitor, I'd tell them, listen, go take up another sport.
Yeah.
And he criticized me and said that's awful rough on a person.
Yeah.
And I said to him, well, I'm not making a living from this, right? And so you have a lot of trainers that will tell somebody, oh, you got to do this. You could be great.
It's
Just
money.
keep paying me.
Yeah.
And keep giving me money and keep paying for steroids and keep.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he knows, and I know, you can see a person and know whether or not they're going to be what level bodybuilder they could possibly be.
Yeah.
Now, Eric, obviously, I want to just be clear that I'm not talking about people like Eric. There are a lot of great trainers out there like
Of
Eric
course there are.
who do not do that, but
Yeah.
there are a lot, and Eric, I'm sure, can verify that there are a lot who do that.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem is there are a certain amount of trainers who do help, but there are so many that just abuse the system just to make money.
Yeah.
Jack, expanding on that point, the other point that I would make um, to add to it is that now there are so many people who call themselves coaches who should not be calling themselves
Oh, I
coaches.
know. Oh, I
Yeah.
know.
And
Yeah.
I, the way when I competed, when I had my time competing, I never took anything. I was a natural pro. So I never took anything until I started doing TRT when I was 50 years old. So I built what many people thought was a drug-built physique naturally. And I did it. So I learned how to train and use food and some supplements, how to build muscle and get into shape. What I find with a lot of coaches is that they don't have the knowledge. So when they run into clients and the client's not getting into shape, when they're not getting big enough, all they know to do is throw more drugs at them.
Right.
Oh, you got to double your trend dose. We got to go to
Right.
1,000 milligrams of test
Yeah.
rather than 500.
Right.
You have to use 100 milligrams of Anadrol rather than 50. And that's how they try to solve problems rather than trying to solve problems with how are you training? How are you eating? And those are the things, that's the foundation. So I feel like there's so many unqualified because and the problem also is that it's become this problem where people when I was young and I was coming up and I would talk to an experienced bodybuilder, I'd say, "Can you teach me about training or you can tell me what you're eating?" Now, when people come up to me, they'll say, "Can you tell me what to take?" So it's
Right.
like the first thing they think of before they're even anything
I had
is
people say
what
that to me.
drugs
Oh,
can I use rather
yeah.
than how should I train and how should I eat?
I
And
still
a lot of coaches will feed into that.
stay very vascular. So I was always really vascular through my stomach, my legs, and I'm still very veiny in my arms. And I've heard a guy go up to me. I see the veins in his arms. That's from the tren.
Right. Of
I
course,
don't
it's
even
from the
take
trend.
I don't even take tren. I can't take it. But that was the first. And I looked at him. I said, no, that's from 30 years of dieting and training and competing, not from tren. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but that's the first
I
thought that.
mean, yeah. I mean, I mentioned it many times with many guests. When I used to train in Toronto, I used to train. A World's Gym was going to open, and it went bankrupt before it opened. And I guess you know him, Henderson Thorne. Do you remember him, Ed?
Oh, yes.
A fantastic Canadian bodybuilder. And he was at his prime, about to hit his prime. And Laurel Cravel used to train at his gym as well. She was hitting her, you know, her peak. You remember Laurel as well, the
Oh
Canadian
yeah,
bodybuilder, the female.
sure.
Um,
I remember.
she used to
She
do
was
it.
married, wasn't she?
She was married to Chris.
Chris
Chris, right?
Cicito.
Chris
Yeah.
Aceto, right?
And she was like, I'm there 14, 15 years old, you know, no, 16. I just started to drive. And Henderson said, I'll take your memberships at my gym. And I was there alone one night. There was Henderson going in and out of his office, and Laurel was doing a leg press. I just kept looking at her like this lady's an animal, you know. She was like fantastic condition. And you know, I'm such a young age, and the responsibility that I respect today of Henderson. I wish I've wrote him a couple of times, but you know, that just for a 5 minute discussion, he could have changed, you know, the entire life, my entire life. Because I asked him, you know, I was still very young. I asked him, how do I become like you? And if that had to be asked today, a guy would just take out a list and say, you have to take this,
Right.
and that. He just looked at me and he said, you're European? I said, yeah, you know, I'm from Malta. My parents are from Malta and stuff. And he said, just eat your mother's food. Eat your mother's food, have a couple of burgers, eat and train. Train heavy and eat. Do the basic exercises and eat. That's all you need. You would never hear anything in the gyms about these things. Nobody would come out and talk about them. Once Rich Gaspari said in one of those old videos, I think he was just turning pro. He just turned pro. And he said, back then, nobody used to talk about these things. It was like
Eat
hush
big,
hush in the gym.
eat big, train big, and you'll be big.
Yeah,
And sleep.
obviously some guys used to take some things, you know. And once I asked another guy, a Portuguese construction worker, the guy looked like a Franco Colombo, you know. He never competed. He just had fantastic genetics. And I asked him as well, you know, like the little kid I was, and I was asking like, how to become like you know, these round biceps and, you know, that striated chest, you know. I mean, all day going, you know, with the jackhammer and stuff like that, you know. And he said, drink a bit of vino before you come to the gym to get vascular. That's what he told me. You know, you would expect these guys are going to tell you a secret or something, you know. But for
Kevin,
me,
that was the advice people
yeah,
were given back in the day to be
yeah,
more vascular when they came out, but some people drank too
Right.
much,
yeah.
And they
So
get drunk. They
Right.
be drunk on
kind
stage.
of
yeah,
wobbly on stage.
yeah. We had that. What's his name? We interviewed the Hestiny.
Yeah,
He uh he has a
vodka.
shot
He
of
would drink
whiskey
vodka,
before he trains and before he
whiskey
goes
or
on
vodka.
stage. Yeah, yeah,
By the way, Rich Gaspari was somebody that I write about in my book, and I met him when he was competing in, I think it was San Jose, and he didn't win his class, and I said, Rich, you're too short for the heavyweights. There was no super heavy back then,
yeah.
so my simple advice to him was to go down a weight category, and I offered him a job in one of my gyms in the Valley, but just that simple advice changed his life.
Of course, yeah. You, today, I'm sorry to say, lots of athletes are giving, you don't want to kill their dream, but they are given false dreams.
Oh,
Like you can reach that point, but you don't have to kill. Why kill yourself? By the time they arrive, they're half dead. If you love the sport of bodybuilding, fitness, there are so many avenues now that they can take and
yeah.
they can still be stayed involved. I mean, I competed once when I was 20. That's like, uh,
A long
35
time
years.
ago.
You know what I mean? I stepped on stage, I got second in junior, second in novice, and third in lightweight. And I looked at myself and the other guys, and I said, these guys are already better than me. I mean, if I'm gonna stay running after these guys all my life. So, then personal life, got married and stuff. And then I got involved in bodybuilding again in media, photography, podcast websites. So you still enjoy the sport. Maybe you enjoy it even more than a guy that competes. Because some guys just, if they don't get what they want, they just stop and quit, and they don't want to know about it anymore. And they talk against it. That's the other thing. They talk against it when they don't make they start saying us these guys take that, these guys take that, and all this stuff. And when people tell me, they see a guy, oh, that's all fake and stuff like that, or whatever, and I say, listen, you have no idea what the guy had to go through to look good on that photo. It's like it's a whole process. That takes a year. Other than the years of training to get in that condition, it's a 9-month process sometimes. It's not it's not easy. I always stand up for them. But but it seems the sport today has become it's like people take advantage of certain things and they're not even taking care of their health. That's what's bugging me. It's supposed to be a healthy sport. It's I still see like there's a small black cloud over it. I mean, even though there's the Olympia's getting bigger and contests are there's much more money. I mean, Ed, what do you think about the money today in the sport? Like Arnold pumping out, 750,000 for the Arnold Classic winner.
I always complain to Joe about the money
Yeah,
because well, first off, it was discrimination that the women were getting so much less than the men.
yeah, yeah,
Then there was the 212.
yeah,
I encouraged Derek Lunsford to go into the open because it's 40,000 versus 400.
yeah,
That's discrimination against shorter people.
yeah, yeah,
And unfortunately, Flex Lewis couldn't do that because of his sponsorship. The
yeah.
supplement company didn't want him competing in the Open, knowing that he
Wow.
was a likely winner of the 212. But yeah, the money, and I know when the Weeders were alive, um, Arnold was basically forbidden to offer more money because
There
they
was
didn't want to
yeah,
raise
an
Olympic
agreement.
prize money.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, God bless Arnold for doing that, and I know it's time to everybody who competes in the pro should get money. I
yeah,
mean, every placing
yeah,
deserves something.
Yeah, not to mention the money that the promoters are making and
yeah,
gym
Not to
yeah,
mention the
admin.
fact that you have to pay for a
I mean,
pro card. That should not
difference
be.
between first place and second place. I mean, that's not right. Let's spread the money around, and
yeah,
it's yeah, just become a money machine for
yeah,
printing pro cards is like printing money.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
now if you're a pro, you have to pay for your pro card.
Of
Like
That's what I'm
back in
saying.
the
You have
course.
to pay. That's
back in the day,
ridiculous.
when you were a pro, they would pay for you to come and show
Yeah.
up. And
Yeah,
It's like the worst baseball player in the sport who never even gets off the bench is making 300 grand a year just for being a pro.
yeah,
But
yeah.
Ed, you know what I wanted to ask you before?
Uh,
Because you I know that you're an architect, and you said that um, part of what drew you to being able to figure out who looks like they have potential and not is part of your it's your eye. And when I was younger, I was an artist, and I've sold paintings and things like that. And when I went into bodybuilding, I had a specific, I was drawn, I did respect the mass monsters of the age, like the Bertle Foxes and those kind of guys. But I was much more drawn to the Bob Paris look, to the, Rory Liedermeyer, the more shapely, that was to me more what drew my eye. Now, being that you have that kind of artistic eye, what do you think about where bodybuilding has gone since you've been, watching it, everything from
Yeah.
Arnold through Frank Zane, Samir, and Lee Haney, and all the Mr. Olympias. Do you think bodybuilding's going in a poor direction right now?
I do. Let me just give you, being an architect, I taped a lot of the people that I knew over the years. And let me just give you two statistics. Dallas McCarver was somebody that I actually encouraged to get in to compete. And he was exactly 6 feet tall. I was with him when he got his pro card in Pittsburgh. He weighed 255 pounds on stage. Today we have Nick Walker, who's, amazing, but he's 5 inches shorter and he's on stage at the same weight.
Yeah.
That's the difference. It's just too much. It's like the movie Amadeus, too many notes.
Yeah.
It's just too many pounds today, too many pounds different. There's no athleticism.
Yeah.
I miss the beauty of the smaller, quote, smaller physiques.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the public loves
Yeah.
is that look,
Yeah.
more of a superhero look and not
Yeah.
so much
This, yeah.
uh, a sumo wrestler look.
Yeah. This week I shared yesterday, I came across this photo of the 86 Olympia. Look at Lee Haney. I mean, he looks like I don't know, a classic physique today compared
Yeah. Yeah.
to the
He's six
bar.
foot two. He's
Yeah.
6'2", 240 pounds in that
Yeah, but
picture.
everything flows, I
Yeah.
mean, you can't say there's anything bad about him here. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, today the legs are a bit bigger, a bit more uh but it's like things were a bit they were easy on the eye. That's the thing. It's like you today you see so much.
Yeah.
It's
Well, look
like,
at Chris Bumstead. Look at
yeah,
the public, the followers he
of
had, and
course. Of course.
I've never seen a crowd. I haven't seen a crowd reaction like he gets,
Yeah.
like he got when he competed. I
Yeah.
haven't seen that in 25 years.
Yeah, they love
It
him.
shows you what the public
Yeah.
finds attractive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think I think it's also identification, right?
Yeah.
Guys don't want to see people like Nick Walker because they don't feel like they could ever look like that anyway, even if they wanted to. They feel like a Chris Bumstead or other physique type uh, competitors that they could. That's more attainable. Absolutely something they could
Well,
obtain.
not
And
only
so,
more attainable, but also it's just more pleasing to the eye.
oh yeah, on
Yeah,
top of that, but I'm
yeah,
saying also from a psychological perspective,
yeah.
I always like the bigger guys because I was a bigger guy, Ed. So I think people will gravitate towards what they identify as themselves, and I think it is more pleasing to the eye. But I also think okay. I couldn't even think about it's like billionaires. People look at billionaires and they think, oh, I could never be a billionaire, but they might talk to a millionaire and think, oh, that's obtainable. I could do that if I do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. It's not all of it. I think you're right. I think it's the aesthetic as well. But it's just, I like Nick Walker's physique. I actually trained right next to him, and he trained over here in Delaware where I live. I live in Pennsylvania, but I trained in a gym in Delaware, and he was there for a while before he left. And I think he looks great. I mean, he's huge, but it's
But Jack,
not
back then when you knew him in Delaware, he's probably 20 pounds lighter.
probably yes, yes, you're
Yeah,
probably
when
right.
he first made it to the scene, he was much lighter. When he won his pro card, and
Yeah, you're probably right, Ed.
you know,
I haven't seen him in
So I've
since
seen
he's
him in Las Vegas,
I mean,
and
there he is. Look,
it's just frankly, just too big.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think that I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a lot of mass if that's your physique, but I think that a lot of these guys are just trying to do too, like they're just going too far, and they're going and then they end up blowing out their waists, and their waists
Again,
start
it's
getting
getting
really
back
thick
to,
and blocky, and they look like a
uh,
refrigerator, and
Not
it
to
really
mention
look
the
like a
health.
well, it gets back
not
again.
well, the health is a whole nother part because some of the things that these guys take, I can't even. It
Right.
makes me crazy to know that they're just to
But
maybe place top 10 to what
yeah,
they take. But
but
I think that. But do you think, Ed? Do you think that's the fault of
judging,
the
judge.
judges? Do you think the judges, because the judges are rewarding a certain type of
I
physique,
agree. I
that it's
agree
gone that
totally with
way?
Lee Priest on this. It's the judges. They're rewarding that look.
Yeah,
They have incredible power,
yeah.
and no, it's all. I blame the judges.
So
Um,
I mean, like Samson Dauda, he won his Olympia. He dieted down a bit too much this year, and he placed fourth, right? And now he's gonna come back. He's what over 300? What is he, Eric?
He's 340 now.
Yeah. So one, it's obviously not healthy. I agree with Sean Ray on that. Why do you have to explode to such weight? And I mean, will that win him events? You know, if you get a Hadi Chupan next to him, you know, shredded, or even Andrew Jacked, which he's probably taller than him and much more refined. You know what I mean? So why do they have to go? Why is they always think bigger is better? You know?
Part of it's our society, I think, Kevin. Everything is, all these sports activities have taken to a new extreme, and it's
Yeah,
not healthy. It's not good.
yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
I think that I feel like I don't want to, I don't have anything obviously against anybody in the
no,
IFBB,
no,
but
we're just talking.
I feel like that the IFBB, the NPC, they should start putting a lid on this, some of the craziness, just to if anything, for the athlete's health,
Yeah,
because I think there's been, and I know social media makes it possible to hear about more deaths, as we spoke about before, but you're starting to see, Jay Cutler's walking around, he's in his 50s, looks great, healthy. Dexter Jackson's walking around, he's a tiny version of himself, but he looks great. He's healthy. Even Flex, with all the problems that he's had in his
yeah,
his life. I
yeah,
see him almost every day at the gym.
yeah,
But you see other guys just passing away. Just the other day, I saw this guy who just competed. He's a classic guy,
yeah.
and he passed away at like 30. I mean, and it's happening constantly. I would think that after a while, you would start to look at that and say, we need to do something about this because it doesn't look good. It
No,
doesn't
it
look
doesn't.
good that our athletes are passing away like this.
You're assuming that those folks care.
No, no.
I'm not saying I wish they would.
Yeah.
They all they care about is making money, and
But
as
but I
long
feel
as
like at some point, it's going to turn around. It might get so frequent that maybe people
maybe
start turning away from it.
Oh,
maybe I hope
That
so.
was one problem I had with Joe Weider. I guess because the fans that like that look are so vocal or so loud,
yeah,
that Joe would think that was what people wanted to see,
yeah,
bigger being better. And
yeah,
I try to explain to him it's a small group of fans, but they're the most vocal.
yeah.
Uh,
Like, who used to sell the most covers? Frank Zane.
No, Arnold. Joe would show me every month what the covers, and it was Arnold was the best seller, but Gunter Schlierkamp, they had him on 3 covers in a year, and the Weider people used to joke with me that if there were 13 months in the year, that he'd be on every cover.
Really? Wow.
But no,
Was
covers.
that because he was like handsome? Was that the look
Yeah,
that he
he
had, the
looked he
handsome
looked
look?
like Jack London.
Yeah.
Wow.
He
Wow.
looked like Jack London when he was 30.
Yeah.
Come on, Jack. You're still a damn good-looking
Oh,
guy.
go on.
Come on now.
For 58 years old, I'm okay.
You're good. You're good,
I
brother.
mean there's lots of positives in the sport. It's not just negative, but like we want to see the sport grow in a healthy way. You know, it's like unfortunately the way it's looking like it's just the promoters don't care what the bodybuilder is going to go through afterwards or what he did to get there. As long as he's on the poster for the show to sell the tickets, you know, and to get him on stage. But you have to care what's going to happen to him afterwards. Just don't use
Kevin,
him like a piece of meat.
Kevin, they don't even care if they sell the tickets because if they get 300 competitors who
They
bought
Yeah,
made them
$600
money.
$300 each. Yeah,
they've made $400 each.
yeah.
They've made
So
$250,000
yeah,
without doing anything.
yeah. So you have
Yeah, that's so
yeah,
true because I see contests that are not even pro level, NPC contests all over the place where there's 400, 500 competitors in the show and the audience is only half full.
yeah.
Not to mention,
It's the
not to
Not even
coaches.
mention,
half full. They're
Yeah,
talking
even
a
now
couple
you have
hundred people in these shows.
Yeah, they're
I mean,
tiny, and then there's
yeah.
so many seats not even sold, and I'm like, and you remember they're making all their money on the
look,
tremendous amount of
you
money people have to spend on
yeah,
and even to
you'll
get
doing the
have
show.
backstage, to
Eric,
get
when
backstage.
Gold's Gym put on contests back in the day when Pete, Tim, and I owned it, we didn't charge entry. There was no entry fee.
yeah,
They are the show. It's absurd to have these athletes have to pay. And of course, nowadays, being millennials or Gen Z,
yeah,
they'll enter two or three different categories. So
Right.
that's you're
yeah.
talking
You have a
you're talking
hundred
twelve
dollars
hundred
each.
dollars in
Yeah,
entry
yeah.
fees.
Plus, yeah. So you have if you have make it the nationals or European championships or whatever, you have let's say 1,000 athletes, right? So you have between $250, 250 to 300 to enter. If you want to do a crossover, you have to add another 100 to each class. So if a guy competes in two categories, it's already 350. Photography is another $100 or $150. You have the tanning, which is another what, $100.
150.
Well,
Yeah,
now,
and
now to be a trainer to get backstage, not only do you have to pay a fee, but
you
you
have to
also have to
pay.
get an NPC card.
You have
I
to,
just was going to say that, Jack. I know because all my clients want to have me backstage, and I'm like, I'm not paying $150 to
yeah,
go backstage, and also, so if you guys want to
yeah,
pay it for me, fine,
Yeah, I used to
which
make them pay.
sucks, but I mean,
yeah,
like,
But
yeah,
the
it's
other thing
unbelievable.
you'll notice that I noticed is when you go to get your NPC card at the show, you can only get it one way, and that's through cash.
yeah,
They don't-
cash.
they
Yeah,
don't-
but
well,
that's
there's a
Jack.
reason.
That's a
I know.
whole different
I, I,
show. That's a
I know.
different show.
I know.
Maybe we have to do it where people have to pay to watch it because I'm telling you, that's something that
I know.
I've been writing about for 15 years,
I
and
know.
what I went through, and I ended up having to sell a website, so my website.
Okay, I'll keep my mouth
Um,
shut.
but the thing is, what I can say is, the owner of a federation, to not mention names, doesn't even go to 80% of the shows, and the money just comes in, sanction fees and things like that. So they make it hard for the promoter because they have to fork out a lot of money to make a show, right? And then, like,
Not necessarily.
sorry,
Not necessarily. I mean, I hate these ballroom shows. They get those ballrooms for free.
yeah, I know, but sanction fees, you have to pay the federation.
Yeah, 30 grand.
Yeah.
But
But that's why I praised Lee Haney this year. He just went out on his own. He left and he did
Lee
his
Haney
own
is somebody
show.
who has a lot to say about where bodybuilding
Yeah,
is
he
going
left and
today.
he did his
A
own
lot.
show. Nobody's sanctioning him. He's sanctioning himself. So that was a big move. And what happened? He left. I mean, he left the MPC after all those years, promoting shows. And the minute he promoted his own show. Nobody could care less if he was an eight-time Mr. Olympia, all his knowledge, all his history, what he did for the sport, just because he went on his own. Not all the athletes aspire to be Mr. Olympia. Some athletes, their goal is just to get on that stage. And if they can get on a stage that's run by Lee Haney, they probably appreciate it more than just doing some show, just for them to stand next to Lee Haney, for them, that's the award they got. That was their drive. You know what I mean? And it's nice to see that some athletes are breaking away and doing things the way they want to do things. Because they know what the athletes want. And listen, to compete. I mean, even at the amateur level, at the bottom, I know lots of athletes in Malta because Malta, we do a lot of shows here, Mediterranean Championships, Diamond Cup. We do the World Master Championships for the IFBB, the Pro, and stuff like that. And you'll see athletes just at the bottom going in, the money they spend, and they telling me this is the first and last year I'm competing. and it's a shame because they have the genetics to do well, but they can't afford it, you know, they really can't afford it. And it's a shame, you know.
It is interesting. You know what's interesting though about the sport, and even though there should be much more opportunity for money and so on and so forth, because there are more and more people competing, and I know that's also because it's become a business, so now they have all different classes you can
Yeah,
compete in,
yeah,
which opens it up to a lot more people. But I just know from training so many people who aren't pros, who I know what they're spending on me as a coach. I know what they're spending on some of them PEDs, some not. But on, especially the women with the suits they have to wear and how expensive they are and all the different expenses that goes into getting ready for a show, knowing that the best they could do is win a trophy. There's a lot of people that I train who love to compete, but they know they're not going to be IFBB pros. It's still amazing that it's such a sport of passion.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? That people are still competing, even though it's gotten so expensive for so many people to do this. But you see thousands and thousands of competitors. There's something still special, at least, about bodybuilding and all the classes that bodybuilding comes from.
yeah.
That people still want to do it. It's just there's a passion to it. There's something about it. You know what I mean, Jack? You know what I'm saying?
I do. Listen. I can for most of my career, I've competed as a hobby. It's been because I'm passionate about competing, and I love the sport, and I always loved the journey more than I loved actually the shows. Never really enjoyed the shows. I more enjoyed the preparation. And I
Me
have
too.
friends. I have friends who I can name who act as if, and they live their lives as if they're preparing for shows, but they never compete. They just
Yeah.
like the discipline and the eating and the way they feel and the way they look. So, even now I try to stay in shape. I'm 230 pounds and I have abs and I'm 57 going on 58 years old. And because I love to do it, I feel better. I feel like I look better than most people my age. And,
Yeah.
I get a lot out of it. It was never really about the trophies for me. I mean, maybe when I was younger, I had dreams of this and that, but you realize pretty quickly, okay, I'm not going to be in the top tier of this sport, but you continue to do it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, as well today, um, what's funny about bodybuilding and other sports, the bodybuilders are self-employed, right? Nobody owns them. They just sign a contract to compete at an event, and they
Right,
pay a pro card to compete in your federation, but
right.
still they cannot do what they want. I mean,
No,
if you
no,
want
I
a
got punished. I got punished. I did a lot of shows in NABA. I won the NABA USA, the NABA North America
yeah,
World Championships, and I got punished severely for it.
yeah, and I
It's part of
mean,
the reason why I don't have a card.
yeah, and I mean, if you're a pro bodybuilder and the federation you signed with them and they want you, so you want to compete at the New York Pro, why don't they pay for you to go to the New York Pro?
Yeah, well, they used to.
They
I
used to.
competed. Yeah,
They used to. They don't
I
anymore, right?
right, right.
And I mean, I mean, it's I mean, I mean, this guy, he's getting a lot of pressure, and he's he's really getting he's not happy about it, and he keeps telling me people are bugging me to go to the NPC, right? This kid, he's a pro with the IFBB on the side of Rafael
Oh,
Santonia, the president after Ben Weider of the IFBB,
I
right?
wonder if he was
Amateur.
around.
And
Wow.
they have it used to be called the Elite Pro, but Rafael, he changed the name back to IFBB Pro because he thought he deserves to have that name as well. This kid, um, he's been getting a lot of pressure to switch over to the NPC, and we interviewed him. And he lives in the United Emirates. He's Nigerian, and he told me, Kev, why should I switch when they pay for my flights, they pay for everything, the hotel, they just want him at the shows. He said, I'm living the life. I just go, I win, I get my prize money, and I go home. He said, I don't have to spend anything, you know? That's how it should be. You know what I mean? He said, why
Yeah,
should I leave a good thing just to go to compete as an amateur again with the NPC and try to win the Olympia, you know? And, reality sets in, I mean, um, uh, not all, but I mean, some federations do take care of their athletes, that they want,
When
and
I went to the P, I went when Wayne did the PDI. Wayne DeMillion did the PDI
yeah,
for a short period. I was one of the first athletes to sign with him, and I competed in the Night of Champions against
yeah,
Lee Priest.
yeah,
Lee and I were the first two to sign, and he paid for our hotel rooms and
yeah.
all our expenses. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
If you're a professional, that's how it should be, you
yeah,
know. Why should a professional pay to earn a living? That's
right.
I can't understand, and obviously the amateurs, man, I'm telling you, it's crazy. But
But the
anyways,
people keep showing up at the shows and they
yeah,
want
they
that
keep
pro card.
coming. I mean,
And I just find it makes me laugh when somebody says that they have, and then don't they have to renew their pro card every year for the
Yes,
same
every
yeah,
two
payment?
years now. Yeah,
$250 every year.
I
yeah,
mean, seriously, could you imagine the Heisman Trophy winner in a football and then he gets recruited by a team? They go, well, you can play for us, but you got to pay for your
yeah,
pro card. I
yeah,
Right.
mean,
Right.
yeah,
it's
yeah.
so
What's
silly.
his name? The German bodybuilder, the master bodybuilder. Now he's a masters. Uh, I forget his name. I did we talked about him not long ago, Eric. He was an IFBB pro.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
He competed in like
Yeah.
he competed
Marcus
for like
Rule?
no, not Marcus Roll.
No, it was a shorter, small guy.
Shorter guy. He competed for like over 20 years, right? As an IFBB pro, placing very well in the Olympia and all these things. And he goes and he competes once with the German Federation. Once. In his like he had retired. And he wanted to compete at the Masters Olympia. They didn't let him. They took his pro card away because he competed with another
Right.
federation after dedicating his life to the pro league. And he failed in winning his pro card back, and now he won it back. But look what a guy that's over 50 had to go through to win a pro card that he already won when he was
Yeah,
19.
they tried to do that to me too.
I mean, come
I'm not
on,
going to say
man.
who did it, but
And when I told
I
him,
was suspended for 3 years, and
yeah,
then I had to start all
yeah,
over again, and I'm not doing that.
when I told him, let me talk about it, he was scared. He said, no, because I won't get my pro card back. And I said, all right, you know, good
I
luck
don't
to
like
you.
talking about it. I don't need my pro card anymore.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you know, listen, there are social media kids making much more money than professional bodybuilders with their social
Well, and
media.
so am I. So I'm not worried
Yeah, I
about it.
mean,
Good for you.
I
I'm
mean,
not worried.
I
I'll
mean,
get.
Ed,
I don't have my pro card, but I'll go out and get in my Ferrari and
yeah,
drive to the
yeah,
gym. Be okay.
Ed
I'll
knows
be
about
okay.
it more than us. You know what these athletes went through in the past. To win a pro card. Back then, it was a real pro card. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like I won the North American and the NABA, but back in the day, if you wanted to be a pro, you either had to win the overall at the USA, the
yeah,
overall
Overall,
at the
yeah,
North America,
If you want to,
or
if you want to be depressed, go to the NPC newsletter website and look at the nationals that just happened.
yeah, yeah.
I
the
would say
physique system.
it's all wasted pro cards with the men's bodybuilding.
I mean, I remember the days when the top 6 or 7 guys at the Nationals of the USA all looked like they could have been in the Olympia. Like, and you
Oh
had
yeah,
to wait your turn.
yeah,
You know,
well, that's what I
Flex
said. I
and
did the
Chris
USA.
Cormier and Mike Francois and Dennis Newman and Edgar
yeah.
Fletcher.
Eric, I
Like,
competed when Chris Cormier won in the USA's, and it was like I don't even think I was in the top 10. I mean, they were all like top tier guys that you've heard of now. That
Yeah. I mean,
better. Those guys were better than most of the guys competing today.
yeah. And
oh yeah,
back then, Ed, remember Lee Haney? He won the MPC, the first one, nationals, and he wanted to, you know, make sure he's the best in the world amateur. He went to the world championships and he won the overall there in Europe. And then he got the wild card to go to the Olympia. One guy got a free pass. He earned his qualification to the Olympia because he won the world championships in Europe. Back before, that's how it was. The Americans, because they were affiliated with the IVB as amateurs, Jim Manion would send an amateur team to the world championships because the IVB in Europe are with teams representing your country. Ben Weider's dream of the Olympics. Everybody would have, the American flag, the Canadian flag, whatever. And you would represent your country as a team. And then the overall winner would get a pro card and he would go to the Olympia. And that's when Lee Haney got, was it third or fourth on his first Olympia? I think it was with
Third,
third with Samir Banu, right? Yeah.
83.
Yeah. And So, but then that changed, then, the NPC didn't want to go to the World Championships anymore and whatever, history. But
Hey Ed, Ed, do you still own a house, that house that you owned in Ven or
No, I
California?
left LA in 2004. I moved to the desert area east of LA.
Oh, okay. Do you still, at this point, just out of curiosity, do you still look for bodybuilding talent and help people out, or you stopped doing
I
that?
do look for talent for the WWE, but
wow.
basically I've almost given up given the attitude I see with young people I approach. They
Yeah.
pretty
Huh.
much blow me off. And right now, actually, I'm encouraging one of my WWE candidates to pursue a boxing career in England.
Wow.
And occasionally I meet a few. There are more good bodybuilders in Europe right now than there are
Yeah, yeah.
in America.
They love it here.
Did you ever, just pops into my head. Did you ever bring somebody over in your years, say, okay, come live with me, you have tremendous potential, so on and so forth, who completely disappointed you? Like you knew they could have been a star, but they just didn't
Well,
have.
Colin von Moger would be probably my biggest disappointment.
Wow, yeah,
There you
yeah.
go.
And I
That's a
write about
shame.
that in my book.
Wow,
I mean,
yeah.
it's not easy once you get an invite to the WD tryouts. It's not easy to win or to go through the course and make it. He did. He aced it. They offered him a contract and he turned it down. He told me he didn't even call me and ask me if what I thought.
Really?
If he had taken that contract, he'd be in movies now like The Rock or John Cena or
Wow.
Why wouldn't he want to take that contract?
he's
You don't even know?
Australian. They're just, as a group of people, they're just, it's like, he said it was just a lark to go and try out for that. But yeah, his life would be so different if he had
No,
just
no,
said
Oh my
yes.
God, because he's
Yeah,
nowhere now. I mean, he's
yeah,
had not a very easy time.
no, no.
yeah.
He's in a hole that I think it's very difficult.
Unfortunately, I tend to focus now on more the big disappointments like Evan Marriott, who became Joe Millionaire. If, if he had, if he had been willing to take acting lessons, he might have been in, the first Superman movie.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's just, they didn't dare to dream, or I guess they thought they're going to be young and beautiful forever, and there's no hurry. But
yeah,
yeah, that was a huge disappointment.
Well,
yeah,
I'm glad I'm not in that group.
I was just hoping to say we say Jack London, man, he's really screwed up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, some people, they decide certain things, some people sleep on it, some people just decide there and then and say whatever happens, but it's a shame about because Callum he turned pro
Well,
as well.
he's one of only maybe three people I've met in 50 years. Looked like a young Arnold, and he
Yeah,
did a great job in the movie
big,
playing a young Arnold,
Yeah, he was.
bigger.
bigger,
Uh,
whatever it's called. Yeah,
it was, I thought, a really wonderful movie and pretty accurate. But no, he was an incredible talent, and he's tall. He's almost 6'2", which
yeah,
there aren't many tall. I mean, that's Arnold's height. That's kind of the magic height.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
he could have been a huge star.
yeah,
Huge.
it's a shame. It's a shame. I don't know, maybe it's because when his brother passed and all these things, and it just, some people can't handle it.
Imagine, I mean, his father became a full-fledged quadriplegic in a
Yeah,
motorcycle. So what
yeah,
does he do when he comes to LA? He ends up with, I think, 5 or 6 motorcycles, five of which were
yeah,
all the same model.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, just crazy,
yeah,
out of control, sad.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And what's his
Interesting.
name? There was that other, I think, what's his name? Not Dennis,
Dennis Newman.
Dennis Newman. I think if it wasn't for, was it leukemia? He got leukemia.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
got leukemia, but yeah, it
I
was,
think he had the look.
yeah,
He had
yeah,
the look.
He would have been huge.
He
yeah,
had that Superman look,
yeah.
the hair, the face, the physique.
Incredible physique.
He
Should have
could
been
have
Mr. Olympia.
been the cover photo, Mr. Olympia, for like 10 years.
No, he was
Um,
definitely, one of my favorites.
yeah.
Yeah.
When I see him, it's like, destiny. It's like, really? He had to get leukemia. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, thank God he's alive still and everything, but It's destiny. That's why me and Eric always say, where some pros say they shouldn't compete if they're not ready. If some athletes qualify to the Olympia, especially in open bodybuilding, just go at least once. I know you might place last, but that might be the only time you can
Yeah.
go. It's exposure.
I
I
know
mean,
people like Frank McGrath feel that way, that he knew he wouldn't probably place in the top 10, but it was a
I-
dream to compete.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just step on that stage. You earned it.
I mean, I know Sean Ray's vocal about it. Why waste the time of the judges? Why waste your time? Why waste the money? Why waste your family's time? But listen, it might be that only year that you
Well, we're
can go.
talking, we're talking 15 people on stage out of
Yeah,
a population of 8 billion. I
yeah.
would say that's pretty special.
Yeah, can you imagine training your whole life, even though you know you're not going to crack the top 10, you're there, you know?
Well,
That's
Kevin,
why,
and I know many of the people that didn't place high actually had a better life, made more money than the people that beat them.
of course, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sure.
I mean, Kevin
Gunter
Leroy's,
Schlierkamp, Mike Matarazzo,
yeah, yeah,
people like that had a hell of a life for a long time and never were, Mr. Olympia or even, I don't know,
yeah,
probably never got beyond fifth place.
yeah, yeah. But anyways,
So Ed, what's the name of the book that you've been talking about? How
three,
can you get it?
three
Well, the
musketeers.
book is The Three Musketeers,
Yeah.
referring to Pete Grimkowski, Tim Kimber, and myself. It's on Amazon. I narrated it. It took 7 days to read 7 hours. But you go look for Three Musketeers and then Ed Connors. Look for my name.
Definitely want to grab that. Very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
All right,
Okay,
everybody
guys.
out there, go get that book.
yeah.
Yeah.
Jack, when's your presidential run? When is that happening?
Well, it's funny you say that. We had a plan for me to become, majority leader and then run for governor here in Pennsylvania, but I have taken a hiatus from politics and focused on business and running this firm and
Yeah.
trying to really just finish my career out over the next 7 years or so and just retire. What I do after that, I might re-enter politics then. Right now, I'm just sort of taking a hiatus for the mere fact that politics is so, you know, it's just it's a complete shit show, and
No, yeah, it's a
there's
mess.
there's
I, I,
really
I
no,
wouldn't want to be involved.
Yeah.
a guy like me. I'm a reasonable person. I believe that whether you're a Democrat or Republican, we all want to get to the same place. We all want our kids to make more money than
You
us. We all want
should.
a safe place for them to go to school. We all want low taxes and want spending to be, fiscally sound and responsible. But when we start saying us and them and start saying, well, you're a Democrat, so that means you're a bad person, or you're a
Yeah.
Republican, that means you're
It's
a
the same
traitor.
year. Yeah. Yeah.
The divisiveness in the politics today, and is just not something that I can get on
No, it's
board with.
horrific.
Yeah.
I
It's
was
really,
asked to be I was asked to be the Republican chairman of Pennsylvania this year, and I simply turned it down for the mere fact that I can't get behind divisiveness.
yeah.
And I'm not going to get into whether or not Donald Trump's a good president or whether this is good or that's good. I just don't. I just can't get behind the divisiveness. I can't get behind the use of the DOJ as a revenge tactic. I can't get behind a lot of stuff that both sides are doing.
Yeah.
And so, for that matter and that fact alone, I decided to take a step back, focus on my family, my business,
Yeah.
growing my wealth, and then maybe when things calm down and it makes sense for a reasonable guy. I'm a Ronald Reagan Republican. I'm a reasonable person, and I don't believe that because you're a Democrat or a Republican that you should hate each other. We're
No.
all want the same thing. So,
Yeah.
thanks for asking. Do I think I could run this country? Absolutely. That was the plan, was to run for governor this year. I would have been running for governor this year of Pennsylvania, but I just can't. I have too much integrity and too much. My reputation is more important than anything. And that reputation being, I didn't get into politics to make money or get anything out of it. It was to be a public servant. I
Yeah.
didn't need to make money or to get anything from it.
Yeah.
And so, to be continued, I'm always
So,
trying to find the next.
all right. Well, I think that's I agree with you with million% on the politics issue. Could do a whole podcast on that for sure.
Right.
But so you're 57 years old. You're going to be 58 soon. Just out of curiosity, because this is a bodybuilding podcast,
Sure.
What are you doing these days in terms of training? How do you handle your training now?
That's a great question. So I have a lot. I have some back issues, but I train 4 days a week. I have gotten away from squats, and I can't do deadlifts and anything really bent over. I was invited to do the over 55 Mr. Universe with NABA,
Oh
because
wow.
I still have it. I just don't feel
Yeah.
I don't need to prove anything to myself anymore, and I don't really want to put myself in that position. But I train hard. I keep myself in really good shape.
Yeah.
My body fat's below 10%, and I still
There
got
he
some,
is.
Still got some
still got
guns.
something going on. But it's just for me, just for
Yeah.
fun and a
Yeah.
lot of great memories, and I think that's where they belong. But
Yeah.
I train hard still. I train.
Yeah.
The recovery takes longer, so I can't
Of
train
course.
4 days. I used to train four in a row, take a day. I basically train every other day now,
Yeah.
because my body needs more time to
Of
recover.
course. Of course.
Do you do TRT now just because to keep yourself level and
I
stuff like
do.
that?
I do.
Okay. Yeah,
Absolutely.
because it's health at this point, it's healthy, but I mean, just curious.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I do. But I'm in really great health. I mean, my heart is great now. I had the
That's
blockage.
awesome.
I had my aortic valve replaced, but that had nothing to do with bodybuilding. That was
No,
completely
no.
genetic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I'm in
most
really
definitely.
good physical condition, and I'm just trying to take care of myself.
Awesome. I
Ed,
love it.
what do you have planned? You're going to still tour Europe for a couple more months?
I just signed a lease for 6 months for an apartment in Lecce, Italy.
Ah, wow.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, that's got to be beautiful.
Nice.
Well, like Jack, I'm disgusted with the politics in America on both sides. I hate the way California's been run in LA.
Uh,
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
like our current
that's why I
leader.
left.
Yeah.
Um, no, but it's a mess on both sides, and I'm at 81. I'm too
Wow,
old to
81.
make
Yeah.
any significant
Yeah.
changes. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in Europe until somebody dies.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, I obviously I love Italy. I follow Italian football, soccer very close. I mean, while we're on the podcast, I was checking the scores of the games today. There's, the football's a huge sport in Italy, like, the passion, Ed. The
I saw my first live game. I still I love college football in America.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So
but no,
you watched a football game, a soccer game in Italy yet?
yeah, but I mean, I just don't. As an American, it just
Yeah.
doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, all right, all right. Which game did you see? Which was it?
It was a 0-0 score, which was just
What
ridiculous because
teams?
it
What
all
teams
boiled
was it?
down to a couple lucky kicks.
What team was it?
One was from Austria.
Oh, you didn't watch an Italian football game. You didn't watch an Italian
No, they
soccer.
were fight, they were against an Italian team.
Oh, the nationals you watch, an international game then. It
Yeah,
must have been. All right, a World Cup qualifier or something. You have to go to a game in Milan or in Rome.
no.
That's where the
I actually was at the Gold's Gym, the second Gold's Gym to open in Milan, Italy.
all right, all
That
right.
was quite a treat. And then last week I was in the Gold's Gym in Paris, the new Gold's
Wow.
Gym. So,
Yeah.
Wow.
yeah.
Like
Yeah, I'll
like
be in
in
Paris in a couple
yeah.
months.
Like in Europe, like soccer, football, like the big teams like Milan or Inter Milan or Rome and Lazio, when they're two teams from the same city, they call them derbies. That's when you'll get 70, 80,000 people in the stadium, split half and half, and the passion, it's unbelievable. You have to witness it one time. Um, it's something I've been to Milan many times to watch,
Milan's beautiful.
yeah, to watch football. You go on a Friday, you come back on a Sunday, and it's something, it's something to see. Bodybuilding's really big in Italy. There's some great bodybuilders. Uh, it
I'm
goes,
very impressed with the two Spanish bodybuilders,
who
Jose,
won? Yeah, yeah,
and then also
Yes.
Juan Pradels.
yeah, yeah,
I told both of them about 3 years ago, you're going to be Mr. Olympia.
yeah,
So
yeah.
again, you ask about my eye and picking talent, but
Of course. No, no,
You
it's
still
there.
see
those
it.
are two great guys,
Yeah,
better than anything coming out of the US right now.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
Jose's, I really like his physique.
I
Yeah.
mean, uh, uh, Ed, you contributed a lot to, I think just as much as Joe and Ben Weider did, and, helping athletes, like I said in the beginning, and you should be, uh, it's a great honor talking to you about it and stuff like that. Maybe we can do another show another day and continue talking about, these things. And I mean, you know, you're a big part of the history of the sport, you got guys like, Jack that, look up to you, and, that thing where you have, I mean, you can see it in their faces. I mean, I found some photos here that maybe I can while we were talking, I was looking for some. I have Jay Cutler here. Happy to see you. I don't know if you can see this one. There's Lee Priest.
Yeah.
With your book. Is this you with obviously John?
Yes, that was in
Yeah,
1994.
yeah,
That's Antoine Vaillant.
yeah.
That's right,
Antoine Valliere, he was
Antoine.
still young.
Yeah,
You're
I
right.
knew I
And
recognized him.
I invited Antoine to come to LA, and that changed his life.
Yeah, look at that. Unbelievable. And
Cena,
obviously
yeah.
you're Chris Aceto, which he's become one of the top trainers, gurus, dietitians. And now his son, turned pro, and it's a father and son thing now. So we interviewed him as well, Faroud, and on our channel, really good boy. And you know, uh you have, it seems like all the guys that were a part of your life all turned out, uh all on a good path. It's something nice to see, and maybe
Well,
another time we can talk about how Vince's McMahon's bodybuilding federation. Maybe you know some stories about that one day.
I think of his 13 athletes, 9 of them were house guests of mine.
Wow,
So yeah, I've got lots of stories about that. Sure.
that's another
How
episode.
many pounds, how many pounds of chicken do you think were eaten in that house since you it's got to
Oh,
be
I'll
in the
end by
tons.
saying when Mike Matarazzo stayed with me the first time I took him shopping, I said, and he laid out all the chicken breasts on the counter, and I said, Mike, you shouldn't have bought so many. We're going to have to freeze some of these. And he said, no, Ed, these are for the next 2 days.
Oh
Oh
my
my God.
God.
Um, and I think
And it
I think
all it
Mike
all ended up in his arms.
I think
Yeah,
Mike was the first one to really. That was the beginning of the era of more protein is good.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. Anyways, so I don't want to keep you guys so
Thank
long.
you.
It's already quarter
Thank,
past 11 here. I'm sure Ed's a
yeah.
bit, and I still have to upload
Thank,
this thing.
thank you
Yeah,
for
we'll get
having
you
me,
back, Jack.
gentlemen.
Yeah,
Have me back whenever you want. We could tell some other stories. Ed, it's
yeah,
always great to see you, my friend. Thank
yeah,
you for everything.
yeah,
Eric, it's great to meet you, and
You
we'll
too.
all
You
talk
too.
again soon, I'm
yeah.
sure.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Ed.
I just threw you a friend request on Facebook. I don't know if
Yeah,
you saw it, Jack,
yeah.
Okay, I didn't
It's
know that.
just
Okay.
did that.
I really appreciated it for taking the time from your busy schedule, and maybe, sometime, maybe after the Olympia or maybe after the Arnold Classic, we can get you on and maybe, talk about, the show or whatever. It's up to you.
Sure.
I don't know if you're still watching them, or, seeing some photos here and there, but
Actually, I've seen quite a few shows in Europe the past 3 years, and
oh, great. Yeah.
um, the show in Prague is really worth going
Yeah,
to.
that's a big show. Yeah, yeah, that's a big show. Yeah. So all right. So I guess that's it for now. And we'll see everybody next
Take
week.
care, everybody. Thank
Jack,
you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Ed, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate you
This was
guys so
a really
much.
good show.
Good
Yeah.
night and good luck.
Yeah.
Thank
See
you
you
very
guys next
much.
week,
Take care
and
of
don't forget
yourselves.
to subscribe.
Subscribe, like the videos, ask
Yeah.
Ed and Jack questions, whatever.
Yeah.
Just put them in
Yeah.
the comments. All
Bye,
right,
everybody.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.